So then moving on to you're about to graduate high school. Did your parents talk to you about college? Did they talk to you about, okay, do you want to get a skilled trade such as being an electrician, being a plumber? Do you want to go drive trucks? I know you came from that blue collar household. So what decisions went into, okay, you have to do something after college as opposed to maybe just kind of going and working at a factory for the next 30 years? Because that model probably worked a lot better in the 60s and 70s, but obviously in the 2000s, man, it's with technology and all that stuff that model maybe doesn't work as good as it once did.
Absolutely. So for me, I mean, even us, I mean, I went to high school in what 2010 or college in 2010. So that was the epitome of if you don't go to college,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
never gonna be nothing. So it was not an option for me,
yeah.
but it was an option as to what I wanted to go into
Okay,
and what I wanted to do. But for sure, it was a go ahead and get to applying because you're going to school. I
okay.
mean, sure, maybe if I had something else on the floor at the time that would have been lucrative that I think I could have actually
Yeah,
made sense.
yeah.
But at that point, I probably would have been making a business case to my parents that was not even my
Right.
choice to make, right? So I'm doing the things that I was doing as a junior in high school, applying into college. I obviously eventually chose Michigan State,
Okay.
and then that was likely because my brother went there.
Yeah,
It's a state college, you
absolutely.
know. I
Yeah.
would say 10% of my high school class from Northfield went to Michigan State. Like it's one of those kind of things. Uh, so that was a decision that I felt comfortable with. When it came to choosing my major,
Yeah.
I would never say that I grew up as the kid saying, "Oh, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up." Right?
Yeah.
Some people have that story where they're like, "Man, I knew it from the jump," or "My dad is a lawyer,"
Right.
or "My uncle is a lawyer and he played a
Whole
huge
family.
role in my life."
Yeah.
And yeah, this is what I want to do. It's almost like my family heritage. So I didn't have that. I
Okay.
chose political science pre-law,
Gotcha.
with nudges from my family, knowing that being a lawyer can obviously be, I mean, a prestigious industry, of course. I mean, a
Sure.
prestigious job. They say there's only a few like real careers, right, or
Yeah.
professions.
Yeah.
Everything else is a job.
It's a job.
Um, so I did that on a whim of okay, well, I think I can do this. I know I'm adept to language and words, and
Right.
these are things that I like. I was never big on math and science. Well, I was until I was like, I don't really know if this is my thing.
Right.
So I did that being pre-law political science, and kind of once I got into it and took the
Yeah.
classes and understood the concepts, it grew on me more and more and more. And that's something that I think kind of solidified a decision that I made otherwise just made because it felt right.
So that's an interesting thing because do you feel even looking back on it, and I know a lot of people don't like to have regrets or in my life it's different time periods or decisions I would have made maybe differently, knowing what I know now. And uh, similar to your story, I mean, I just had a good mentor because as I was coming into Michigan State in undergrad, I was actually playing football for them. And like most college athletes, it's like, hey, man, we're putting all our time and focus and energy on to football and this school stuff. We'll figure this out later.
Hmm.
And, my cousin who's an attorney, man, he gave me a lot of great advice over the years as it relates to, school and what to go into. And he opened me up to a lot of different industries that I just never knew existed or can happen. But before I enrolled into Michigan State, I was staying with him. He's a criminal attorney, so he's coming home with his stories, and I'm like, man, this sounds interesting. But obviously, looking back on it now, criminals are always doing something dumb, and when you kind of tell out that story, it's like, man, this is an interesting story. So but because of that, I told myself I was going to do political science pre-law because he did his political science degree, earned a political science degree down in Jackson State, and he ended up going to Michigan State for law school. So I'm like, I'm gonna follow that path. But he said something that was profound, and man, this was a game changer for me. He said, hey, because I wasn't necessarily sold on the idea of going to law school. I would just mentor and of kind of following after him, and he was having a successful life. His life has gotten much better since then. But even at that point in time, 10 plus years ago, he was successful and looked at with power and prestige. And I'm like, man, it just makes sense for me to do that. But he was like, hey, you said you like math and science, do engineering, and you can still go to law school because if you decide not to go to law school uh, after or with having that political science degree, then you're going to be screwed. So, and I without knowing what even an engineer was, shamelessly at 18 years old, I did that and it worked out perfectly. But for you saying that, okay, did political science pre-law, and man, I'm a big proponent of, dudes, I call them basket weaving degrees. Don't go to college and spend money and get a basket weaving degree. But looking back on it, knowing what you know now, obviously to get in law school, you just have to have a degree, not necessarily a political science pre-law degree. Would you do anything differently from your with your undergrad degree, or would you still kind of do it the way you did it?
So, I mean, I 100% see where you're coming from with that, right? Like, I don't know if myself I would have chose to be an engineer, but a political science pre-law degree I did with the intention of knowing I was going to law school,
Right,
right? Or
right,
if at the end result is I have this political science degree, what do I do next with this political science degree, right?
right,
So,
right,
like you said, I didn't pigeonhole myself, but I was on a track, right? And if that
right,
track didn't look good, I was either going to pivot that track or end up with a political science degree where I'm like, all right, do I go into politics, right? Do I want
right,
to go
right,
into public policy? Do I want to go work in somebody's cabinet or, work, I guess, in politics in general?
right.
That would have been kind of where I took myself.
Okay.
I did think about that stuff, right? I'm like, okay, well, there are other things that I could do with this, but maybe in a way of if it didn't work out so perfectly,
Yep.
I could have seen myself, or maybe would have seen myself get a more general degree, right? Like even business, right? I think about the JD MBA program that Michigan
Yeah.
State had. I'm like, maybe if I would have did one more year, would I have value from having a JD MBA? Like,
Yeah.
I definitely love the business side of the law, and that's why, as we talk about it later, I went and was working in house with the company as their in
Yeah.
house legal counsel. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just like a special dynamic because you get to be a legal mind in a business setting. So I
Which
think that I definitely would have lended myself toward a business setting because I have good communication skills,
yeah.
teamwork skills, and I think that I could apply that to a business setting just as well as I do to a legal setting.
So
So
would you have still done the political science pre-law route to go to law school, or do you think you would have did like, okay, more of a business degree, business background, and then just still went to law school and kind of made it work now, knowing what you
w-
know?
with hindsight being 2020, I'm glad
Yeah.
the way I did it. I did it the way I did, but I do
Okay.
think that I would have done a different degree. Like obviously,
Okay.
I understand political systems a lot, and
For sure.
obviously the dynamic, which obviously leads into legal studies.
Yeah.
But I do think there is value in having a, I guess, diverse undergrad degree that can
Yeah.
then feed into your legal practice. Like I think you did that perfectly with the
Yeah.
engineering degree